So today we're going to make a pasta bake, and obviously our main ingredient is going to be some pasta. I've just got some quick cook fusilli, but you could use any pasta that you wanted. So you could use things like penne or spaghetti, or if you didn't have that you could even use noodles. And then we're going to use a tomatoey sauce in ours today, so you could use passata or chopped tomatoes like we talked about in the curry recipe, or you could also use a tin of soup as well if you didn't have either of those things. And if you wanted a creamier version, you could actually use a soup like broccoli and Stilton. That would give you a nice creamier flavour. Then for our protein, we could put in either some tinned pork or spam or chicken roll or anything. I've got another chicken thigh here, roast chicken. It's already been pre-cooked. Or you can use some protein, that's like a pea protein that I've got there if you were vegetarian. Or you can just use, if you prefer, a can of pulses, so that could be kidney beans, chickpeas, anything like that. And then I'm going to bulk it out with a lot of veg, so you could use fresh veg like peppers and mushrooms and courgettes and broccoli and onion, or you could use tinned veg like sweet corn or peas or carrots or anything else like that you might have, or you could even use frozen veg. So I've got some sliced mixed peppers there that I could use that's frozen, or you could use frozen peas, frozen beans, whatever you want to use. I've got a little bit of cheddar cheese there to grate over the top when it comes to it. And I've got some hot herbs and spices that we can add in if we'd like to. So the first thing that we're going to do is put our oven on at 200 just to get it nice and warm before we start. And then I'm going to measure out some pasta. So I'm using a cup, it's just a children's plastic cup. And 1 cup is enough for 1 adult portion. So I'm just going to pop that into my saucepan. I'm going to make enough for 2 in this recipe today. So there we go, 1 lot in and the second lot being added to that. And then we're just going to get it on the stove with some boiling water and bring it up to the boil and let it cook nice and quickly. While we're doing that, we can chop all our veg and things while we're waiting. So I've just boiled the kettle and I'm just going to fill up our pan with our pasta in it, and then we're going to put the gas on and let it bubble away while we're doing our vegetables. You can, if you want to, just give it a quick stir just to make sure it's not going to stick to your pan. There we go. And then we're just going to let it cook while we're getting on with the other bits. So for this dish I'm going to use a few of the frozen sliced peppers. So it's just about a handful per person. And then I'm also going to add in some of our tinned veg that we've got. So I've got some sweet corn. So I'm going to add in a couple of spoonfuls, maybe 3 of that. And I think we'll add some peas into this one as well. So I'm just going to drain these. So to show you, I've got a bowl with a sieve, but obviously at home you can do that over your sink. And I'm probably going to add maybe half of those peas. That was a little tin, but I think we're going to add half of those peas. Let's swap the bowls around so you can see. There we go. And we'll keep those out of the way. And then I'm going to chop up a little bit of the fresh veg as well, just so we've got a bit of variety in there. So I'm going to use the courgette, so I'm just going to slice that up. Okay, into chunks. You can cut it however you like. Again, it's worth having it all roughly the same size so that you end up with everything cooking at the same pace. So we can pop that in as well. Now if your children don't particularly like vegetables, you could actually grate them in if you wanted to, and I use the fine side of the grater So if you use that side of the grater, it almost disappears to mush. And you can grate most things. You can even grate peppers if you wanted to. Carrots, things like that. Courgette definitely grates as well. And then I'm going to just peel my mushroom and pop that in our bowl. So I'll just get rid of the mushroom skin. There we go. And I'm going to use the stalk because that's perfectly fine to eat. So I'm just slicing that up. And if you're and as I was saying about grating, if they really don't like it, you could make the tomato sauce and then blend it up with a hand blender, and then you wouldn't be able to see any of the veg in there. And tomato sauce is a really good one for hiding vegetables in, so if they're not too keen on things, you can get away with putting quite a lot of different stuff into it. So because all that is fairly soft, what I'm going to do is just let it cook in the oven as we cook the pasta. So I'm just going to pop it into my oven-proof dish, and I'm actually going to use the kidney beans today rather than the chicken or the pork or anything else. So what I'm going to do is pop the, just open the tin, and then we can pop the kidney beans in. So this one unfortunately hasn't got a pull catch on it, so I have to do it old school with a tin opener. And then, so again, you can do this over the sink, but because I wanted to show you, I'm just doing it over a bowl with a sieve. And then what I normally do is rinse the can out just with cold. So I've just filled the can up with cold water, and then I'm just going to pour that over the top as well. But you could use any pulses, so I've got kidney beans, but you could use chickpeas, you could use butter beans, you could use cannellini beans, anything that you've got, pinto beans, whatever you've got buried in your cupboard. And then we're going to pour that in and give it a little mix around. Got a nice chunky bit of pepper there. I might cut that piece in half because that's going to take a bit longer to cook. Cut it in quarters actually, so that actually cooks. So there we go. I'm just going to move the knife out of the way. And then all we're going to do is add, I've got some garlic granules, so you could add those in. A little shake if they will come out your container. So I'm just going to get a teaspoon to help me. It's always worth tipping it onto a teaspoon because sometimes you can end up with a lot coming out in a rush. I'm going to add in some oregano. If you like chilli, you could add in chilli. You could add in mixed herbs. If you've got any basil, fresh or dried, you could add in that. You could add in a little squidge of pesto if you had that in your cupboard, just to give it a bit of an extra kick. It's entirely up to you. So we mix that round. I'm just going to open this passata that I've got because that's what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to open the passata with my scissors, and then we're just going to pour that over the top. Okay, and then once you put the pasta in and get it all mixed round, I mean this will actually, although I've only put 2 portions of pasta in, because we've added all the veg and all the other ingredients, you probably have enough for 4 people here, which is quite handy. So while we're waiting for the pasta, which is about a minute away, I'm just going to grate a little bit of cheese to go on the top. If you haven't got any cheese, it doesn't matter, you don't have to put that on. But it does give it a nice crispy topping if you do have cheese. So I'm just grated a bit of cheddar to go over the top. There we go, get that out of the way. And then let's check our pasta. Okay, so our pasta is cooked, it's al dente, which means it's still got a little bit of a bite to it, but it's not so soft that it's falling to pieces. So I'm just going to tip that. I've got a colander over a bowl again, just so I could show you what I was doing, but you can obviously drain it off carefully over the sink. You can use a pan lid if you haven't got a colander. You just need to be careful because obviously the steam's hot. And then we're going to pop our cooked pasta into our tomato mixture. Give it a good mix round, and you'll see how even from sort of 2 portions of pasta we've been able to get a whole family meal. Okay, you can use any pasta, like I say. You could use, if you had wholemeal pasta, that makes you feel a bit fuller as well, so it keeps you full for longer. So that's a benefit for wholemeal pasta, and it's got a little bit more flavour to it as well. So just mixing this round. Okay, you can see we want to get a nice even spread. If you had a little bit of tomato puree, because the passata is quite thin, I'm just going to add a squirt of tomato puree in now. But if you haven't got any, it really doesn't matter. Let me just swap this so you can see it better. I'll move it back a bit. There we go. So just a little squirt, about a dessert spoonful of tomato puree. And then I'm just going to mix that round, and that will just make the sauce a little bit thicker. If you're using one of the soups, you might not need to. The creamy soups, you don't need to, or condensed soup, you don't need to, because they'll be quite thick anyway. And then I'm just going to top this off with a little bit of our cheese that we grated. So we're going to just sprinkle that over the top. There we go. Just try and spread it all the way over so that you don't get too crusty pasta. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is actually pop it onto a baking tray, because it's easier to get it in and out the oven. And also then if the sauce is quite runny and it bubbles over, it'll fall onto the baking tray, which you can wash much more easily than if you have to clean your oven, which you don't really want to do. Okay, so we'll pop it in the oven in a second. So I'm just popping on my oven gloves, and then we're just going to pop that in the oven, and it will take about 15 to 20 minutes. The cheese will go all nice and golden and bubbling, and then we'll be ready to serve it. So we're just going to get the pasta out the oven. It's all lovely and golden brown and nicely cooked now, and it's ready to serve.